Hi everyone and welcome back to the Power 365 show. Today's guest is primarily responsible for app experiences at Microsoft. App experience involves both model and canvas apps. Let's welcome Clay Wesener to the show, Principal Group Program Manager at Microsoft for Power Apps. As always, full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/99. Now let's get on with the show. Hey Clay, welcome to the Power 365 show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Clay, you've had a pretty interesting accent there. I was recently at MVP Summit and heard you for the first time, and you're, if you like, from my perspective, a newcomer to the team. Tell me, what's your background and how did you end up inside the Microsoft product team?
I do have a little bit of an interesting accent. It seems to get more interesting as the years go on. I'm Australian by birth and for at least the first 20-something years of my life. I grew up in Brisbane, then ended up spending a few years in Melbourne, actually, just before I left. And I thought Melbourne was going to be my home. I bought a house there and was about to settle down. And then I actually moved to Singapore for what was going to be a 3-month visit. It turned into 3 years. And this was actually on a Dynamics 365 finance and operations project. And then from then I joined Microsoft and I actually moved to London for 2 years. And then after London, I moved to Seattle about 3 years ago. So I haven't actually lived in Australia now for about, I can't do the math, but it's about 8 years or coming up on 10 or something like that. So my accent's gone a little bit global. But yeah, and that's sort of, they're talking about being relatively new to the scene. I've worked on Power Apps for about the last year and a half now. But before that I actually worked on the Common Data Service, unofficial version 1. So I worked on the team that launched that originally, and supported it for the small amount of time that it was around. And before that, then I was working on finance and operations or AX for about 10 or 11 years or something like that. So
wow.
It's what I spent most of my time on in my career so far.
So you just mentioned CDS 1.0. Is it all switched off now? I knew that you're heading for that, switch everything off. Is it done?
Probably by the time this podcast airs,
yeah.
Yes. It is down to the absolute smallest percentage that are left. I think it's actually going to be the end of this month. They'll be all wrapped up.
Yeah.
Which is, a bittersweet for me as being on the team that built it. But a lot of it's front end stuff and a lot of it's UX and the concepts carried forward with CDS. So it's definitely not that bad.
Yeah. I mean, it was a stepping stone, a transition to what we have. And I tell you, what we have is pretty amazing now. So it's exciting times.
I think so too.
So the other thing there, you mentioned you're in London for 2 years. Do you miss London?
I miss parts of it. It is a beautiful city. I loved where I lived. I loved the city. The two things I didn't really love about it was the traffic. The fact that you could be in your neighborhood but still be in the car for another hour as you creeped down one-way streets to get home. And then the second one, I was doing so much work with the Redmond team at that point. I was on a plane every couple of weeks. So I really wasn't spending that much time in Seattle. In London. I was spending most of my time in Seattle, even to the point where back then I had a fairly big beard. I had a barber in Seattle and that's where I was getting my beard trimmed. I was spending so much time here. So I was a lot happier once I moved. Everything was a lot more stable for me.
So you done that 9-hour flight a few times then?
Oh yes. I was an absolute pro of the BA flight over here and back many, many times.
No, I've done that a few times, even though I've only been in London 11 months. So I'm starting to get to know it myself. Yeah, so interesting. So, okay, so you just to read between the lines there, because you came from an F&O background, I take it you were doing that, but was it partner side before you got into Microsoft?
I was. Before I moved to London, I was with a partner for the whole time. They're not, they've changed a lot since I was with them, but it was what was Aston Business Solutions and then Techtura. For many, many years. They went through a few acquisitions over the time.
Yeah, okay, incredible. So when you're not working, and we're going to jump into what you do and what you kind of own and the technology stack shortly, what do you get up to on the weekends? What are your hobbies, that type of thing?
Lots of sleep. But the main one for me is, I was about to say it's relatively new, but I suppose it's a couple of years now, is I have a 2.5-year-old French bulldog named Walter. Who is fairly demanding of my time when I'm not at the office. But it's good. He enjoys the Pacific Northwest. So, you know what I mean, whether it's playing in snow or going for a hike or around the parks. So it tends to be during the week. You know what I mean? He's at home a lot. So weekends tend to be getting out and entertaining him a little bit around Seattle.
They're a fun dog. My nephew has one in Sydney, and he's actually just moving to Germany, and they're having the dog brought up with them because it's a purebred that they've got, and mate, but it's a fun dog.
They're a great breed. He's an awesome little guy. I for years never had dogs, mainly because I traveled so much. It's only been in the last couple of years where I've sort of, now that I'm in Seattle, my travel's cut down a lot compared to what it was. It was the first time really in my professional or adult life where I could actually, get and care for a dog.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you're in the app experience team within, the Power platform broadly. Tell me about what's the lie of the land? What are the kind of various moving parts, if you like, of the Power platform from the world you live in? If you like, what are the key pillars that you see in there? And I know I'm asking this question just kind of more as an update of, it's always changing. There's always transitions happening. There's teams being realigned. And so where do they kind of sit from your perspective right now?
Sure. So, Power Platform all up, we obviously have Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI. My focus is very, very well landed inside Power Apps. And then within Power Apps, we have teams focused on a few different things. You know what I mean, on our maker and ALM experiences and sort of like the life cycle of an app. We have a team focused on data experiences. So how you work with connectors, how you work with entities, views, forms, all that cool, rich data stuff. We even have a team dedicated on mobile experiences and how the players work and things like that. Where my team focuses, app experiences, is sort of then like the catch-all of a lot of other things, in really the wrapper around that in how you actually build an app. So the controls, the app model across both Canvas and model, the expression language, PCF, our new component framework, basically all the tools that you have there at your disposal to go and actually build a Power App. And when I say Power App, I'm talking Canvas and model, customizing dynamics, the broadest extent of the definition of Power Apps these days.
So would you say you owned the UI? Would that be correct?
Within the designer studio, a large portion of it. And so for actually the app studio and the app designer, as well as a lot of the actual controls that people bring to use the actual controls people use to build their apps. Ultimately, sometimes the double-edged sword of Power Apps is that really it's our makers that own their UI. But definitely, yes, we're giving them the tools and the controls to actually go build their apps.
Yeah, but in our current, environment, and PCF is going to be a very interesting journey, and I think it's kind of the bit that's going to make the entire world of what's possible more infinite, if you like, than it ever has, with the various possibilities that PCF is going to allow. But really, you would hold the constraints of, if you like, the upper level nav of the system and the left-hand nav as it is at the moment, right? That would be under your control, and then really outside those boundaries are then what the maker really has control of moving forward, right?
Correct. And we're trying to open up a lot of that. So, right now, especially on Canvas and even on Model, there are a limited set of controls. So, a button looks the way we want it to look. You know what I mean? Apart from themes and some properties, similar with navigation, similar with commanding. And that's actually why PCF is so cool, is that really it's the same framework that we internally use. So then it really means that if you don't like the way that we do commanding or something along those lines, you're going to have the tools now to actually engage a pro developer, you know what I mean, or a more advanced developer, and actually build a control to look at exactly the way that you want it to look.
Yeah. So first of all, can you describe the app experience and what do you think about when designing the app experience for your makers?
Oh, that is an ever going question even for us. So the really where we focus and how we focus is thinking about it end to end. So, you know what I mean? You hear us use words like maker and user a lot for our sort of internal personas. But when we're really designing a feature, we're trying to look at that completely end to end. It really doesn't matter if the maker had the most amazing experience building a Power App if what they've produced is absolute rubbish. You know, if the end user doesn't love it at the end, we've still ultimately failed. The app has, and as a platform, we have as well. So a lot of the work that we do, you know, I mean, focus when we're trying to design a feature is really thinking about, okay, how is the maker going to configure this? How is the maker going to understand it? What's it going to look like to an end user? And ultimately, how do we prevent the maker from making bad decisions so that they can still easily build an app, but they're going to build an app that people want to use? So, you know what I mean? That really means it's not about us just banging out super quick features. And that's why we call it the app experience team, is that we really do try and pivot our thinking, our research, and our design around, okay, let's think about this experience end to end. You know what I mean? Truly, how is it going to impact all of the different personas that use our product, the maker and the user and the admin, basically everyone that gets involved.
Yeah. One of the things that, you know, I've seen a focus in the last couple of years is the area of kind of usability across the platform. And, you know, back in let's say 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, I know in dealing in government type contracts within the Australian federal government would often come up against whether it was compliant as a web app, you know, from a usability perspective and what standards. So Clay, what specifically does your team look at when it comes to guiding principles?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Overarching our mission really is, how do we enable people to build awesome apps? Really simple, but it's a big task. And ultimately, this is through research, through user feedback. One of the big things that we found back is that people need it to be simple. People need it to be easy to understand. It's not, gone are the days that people are learning this technology for a decade before they're developing in it. And it's changing at a rate where we're introducing new features regularly. And every time we introduce something, we can't expect people to go off and do a 2-day course or do something along those lines. So really every feature that we're looking at, existing and new, we'd really try and approach it from, how do we make simple things simple? How do we remove that learning overhead so that someone that is either used to Power Apps or are new to Power Apps can actually come in, leverage that feature, and sort of going back to what I was talking about earlier, leverage it in a way that's going to be beneficial to their end users, not in a way that's actually going to hurt the app that they're building or the customization that they're doing.
Yeah, makes sense. So one of the things, Dynamics has been around a long time, since 2003, and I'm talking really on what was formerly known as CRM and what has morphed into Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform from a CE perspective. So what I'm saying is it's a mature app, but within it, there are, if you like, what I call V1 features. Two that, if you like, jump to mind is the concept of themes. I don't know that there's been much work done in the last couple of years on that little piece.
No, it's relatively static. Yep.
Yeah, and then the other one that jumps to mind was And even as I'm saying it, I'm like, I know there's new features around hierarchies, but the first version of hierarchies that was done was single entity. In other words, you could build account-based hierarchies or contact, but you couldn't do account contact type hierarchies, and visualize that. And I know there's been work done in more recent times, really, at showing the hierarchy, for example, in the sales app of a relationship. So that aside, is part of this transition to the Power Platform and the separation that has gone on in the last 18 months to 2 years between the app, the platform, if you like, and then the app layer. Do you see that you're having to kind of tidy up some of these old legacy V1 never had work done on them and then decide how you take those forward into the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it really falls into two categories. So some are things like, the form designer, the view designer. They're commonly used, lots of people in them every single day. They have a great feature set, but it was very old UI. So for new people coming in, not very intuitive how they can get started. So we've already got a new form designer in preview. We've got a new view designer in preview, letting you do really basic things like drag and drop and preview your data and things that were just never in the originals. And those types of changes we prioritize mainly based on user volume. If it's an area that's frequented, if it has a lot of usage, we're investing in getting those experiences up to date. That's going to be a long journey for us because, as you met, there's lots of stuff in the platform, and we don't want to go dark for 2 years while we just go rebuild things that only 2 people around the world are ever using. So a lot of that, there are other things, and themes is actually a great example, where this is something that now we actually want it to do a lot more than ever it was originally intended. So one of the things that we'll be looking at, and this is realistically a next year thing, like a 2020 thing, but we've started our design around it now, is how do we actually just do a common theming engine that runs across Canvas, across Model, across PCF, across absolutely everything, so that ultimately you can come into a modern designer, build a theme, and it gets used everywhere in your app. So that's sort of the second half of those types of legacy experiences where we don't want to just put a new lick of paint on it, paint it purple and give it a modern experience. We actually want to think about the framework level of it and how do we make sure that it's going to be a first-class theming experience for the next 5 years, 10 years as well. So it really depends on the feature, but it's definitely something that we're seeing. We're not just rebuilding things for the fun of it. We're not just rebuilding things so they can be purple. Really, for us, it's about how do we make things simpler, and how do we sort of bring some of these experiences into a modern UI that people can understand, get to use. Another big push we've been driving as well, it's not really something we blog about, but as a lot of these new experiences, we've invested heavily in accessibility. So people using screen readers and keyboard operations, far, far easier in the new experiences than a lot of the legacy.
Yeah, excellent. So what are the areas you're investing in at the moment? What are your kind of key focuses right now moving in towards the end of 2019?
Yeah, so there's 2 main ones, especially sort of for where I'm focused. The first, and this will hopefully be a common answer you'll get from anyone from our team on your podcast, is quality and fundamentals. Ultimately, the biggest impact to sort of customer pain that we ever see is if we release a build with bugs in it, or we have performance issues or anything like that. So maintaining that health, takes time and takes investment. So we're continuing to push on that, and that'll be something that we sort of always continue to invest in. So that's the first one, and that's really around making sure that experiences where you're building an app are nice and performant and reliable, and then also the end user. You know what I mean? So that the apps that you build go out, run fast, and don't have errors.
Yeah.
Another cool switch on that, which we're sort of kicking up an effort this year, is you would have seen things out already, like the Power Apps checkers. So helping you identify potential issues in solutions and in apps. We're going one further with that. It's work that's kicking off this semester and likely will hopefully be in preview towards the end of the year, around actually allowing you to debug Canvas apps as well. So with a live running app, being able to see like session traffic and what's coming in and out and what's happening with your connectors, something that we just don't have the ability to do within apps today. So again, that's sort of not only our own quality of apps and fundamentals, but starting to see how we can provide some of these tools out to our app makers and users so that they can make sure their app, is of the right quality and has the right fundamentals focus as well. The second big one for us is sort of that theme I was talking about earlier about, how do we allow people to do more complex things, but just in a simpler way? And so the enabling more complex things really comes into, we're working a lot with how we make CDS work just far easier while you're building an app, how to interact with data. So you've already seen some things come out like working with polymorphics, navigating relationships in the expression language. So a lot there is just about making that simpler. PCF this year, we're going to release that across Model and across Canvas. So really that's a way for, really it will be the first foray of pro devs being able to come into a Canvas app and being able to build a control, completely custom on their own. And so the challenge for us is, as we bring in this new functionality, new frameworks and new tools, making sure that we keep things as simple as we possibly can. So, we've done other stuff in the last month, like now you can do drop-down, like cascading drop-downs without having to write expressions. It can be configured through properties. We're doing investments in things like filtering and sorting, being able to do that through a designer experience rather than having to write expressions and having to write code. So really it's a long list of smaller items, but ultimately it rolls up into one of those two buckets. How do we improve quality, both ours and our makers? And how do we enable people to, do more complex things in their apps and build richer apps, but just do it in a far simpler way than they can today?
So do you see that almost in the future that particularly with this PCF coming to market, do you see the day where you almost wouldn't recognize it as a traditional Microsoft piece of software necessarily, that people would be able to tailor it to that degree? Or do you think there'll always be overriding themage, that is kind of Microsoft's DNA shining through?
So, I think one thing, there's a yes and a no part, I think, to that answer. So, we already see people today, like a guy in our team, Brian Dang, went and built like block games and things that look like nothing that Microsoft would ever produce. So like Canvas gives you a lot of flexibility there. And we do want to open some things up to be easier. We were talking about theming, branding. People want apps to look, how the rest of their suite looks and how the rest of their organization looks. So we definitely want to make some of those things easier. At the same time, though, one of the things we are doing is we want to align more closely with how the rest of Microsoft applications look. So, the Fabric controls, which are, a lot of very commonly used in Office and in Azure, for things like buttons and drop downs and field boxes and grids. We want those to be available to you in Power Apps as well, so that as an end user, if I'm moving across Microsoft applications, the second I step into a Power App, it doesn't feel odd or out of place. It just feels natively like the rest of the Microsoft suite. So that'll be sort of like our default set of controls and components that people have available to us. But you're absolutely right. With PCF, it means you can really go build it to look however you want it to look. And ultimately, this way of people getting to more white labeled applications, removing our branding from it, having their own color schemes is becoming more and more common.
Yeah. I see a future, model where people will be able to build an application, let's say on the P2 SKU, sell it to a customer without any kind of reference to that licensing construct, because it'd be bundled in a fee, a SaaS monthly usage of the product as such, and be tailored totally to unique industry vertical that has some specialized need. But there wouldn't be a need to have all the legacy of, you need to have 50 Microsoft P2 licenses or whatever, because the licensing construct would include all that. But it would be kind of like, duck still on the surface, paddling fast below the surface type scenario, that it would be truly the ability to create any type of business application in that like white label experience almost. Do you see that coming?
Well, I mean, licensing aside, definitely, like, that's the vision for the app. You know what I mean? We want you to have the tools available to you to build the app to look exactly the way you want it to do, want it to be. Sorry, and I think that's what I was sort of going before. I think by default, you know what I mean, we do have a lot of customers, and there's a lot of desire for it to look and feel like the rest of Microsoft. But we're definitely not going to prevent people from sort of breaking out of that shell, doing their own themes, doing their own controls, and really, to your point, you know what I mean, doing any type of UI or custom visualization that they want.
Yeah. So if you were to look into the crystal ball and, with what PCF's bringing, I've seen things like a mate of mine, Steve Mordew, he's created a control. He was on the early access program, a control that does, Gantt charts, from a project perspective, all as a PCF control, which, looks quite cool. What are the type use cases of kind of unique controls that there's been no need, if you like, to ship to the platform? My mind goes to something like Telerik controls as an example, where you can do, all sorts of various calendar functionalities, all different types of interactive component type objects. Do you see, from a creative perspective, what do you see the possibilities in the future?
We honestly, I think the reason we're building this framework is because I don't know the answer to that question. And really, every single day, we hear a different example where people are coming to us going, oh, do you have a control that can do this? Do you have a component that can do this? And ultimately, the reason we want to enable people with PCF and with Canvas components as well is so that we can get out of people's way and that they can go build them. But I mean, like, we've seen anything from interactive people doing certain types of buttons and controls to various visualizations. So how they want to present data and rating scales and really simple controls. But when you don't have it and you've got a specific desire of the visualization for your app and how you want it to look, it's hard to go ahead and build. We've already seen people doing that in PCF. As you mentioned, people going then like very advanced and building things like a Gantt chart. Other cool ones as well that we've seen are like image annotation. So the ability to take a picture, be able to draw on it, you know what I mean, in a great service scenario, whether on a mobile or a desktop device, and then actually save that back to your record. Not a complex scenario, but PCF allows you to go build that as a packaged component, use it across your app, which is awesome.
Yeah, I had a colleague involved with a bit of software years ago around ads for television stations, and they created a component that would allow you to play the video to a point, and then give feedback to the creative. I don't want this prop here, I want the prop over here, and you could draw and move it in a video, cool. Interface type experience. So what you're saying is that type of thing, which was in a highly specialized piece of software, could be built now within, the frameworks that you're providing, and if you like, reach a larger audience that doesn't necessarily have the big budgets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and a large point of it is reuse as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that today you can go do on Canvas with leveraging base controls and images and expressions, but that for especially a developer with a potentially different skill set that came from JavaScript, that came from a React background, using something like PCF is going to feel a lot more natural and a lot easier for them to go build.
So one of the comments I've heard is, why isn't React supported in PCF?
It's coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully, again, even by the time this gets posted, we may have support for it. But it is definitely something that we are focused on. It's on our list for the GA of PCF.
Nice. Another comment, feedback after I think I had Charles Lamanna on the show was around why weren't just something like Telerik controls supported in PCF? Now, in my mind, I'm like, well, Microsoft don't own them, so you're not going to take a dependency on something you don't necessarily own. And I assume there'd be additional lifting just to support a one-off company, even though they've got a massive control framework out there, or a number of controls.
Yeah.
Any other answer you would give to that question, why you didn't just go and support some third-party control framework?
No, I mean, yeah, it's very much along the lines of, support and how we manage it. The time we're investing with React now, we want to make sure that it versions correctly, that it bundles correctly, it operates performantly. There's a lot of things even with PCF today that you can pull in lots of different libraries and use them and build in your app. For us, React especially is more about us supporting it in a first-class way.
Yeah, nice. So what can you tell me about the new model-driven maker experience? And I don't even know that I should use the word model-driven. I don't know how far down the path you are of kind of making just a maker experience that covers Canvas as well as model. You've mentioned to me offline maker.powerapps.com. But
make.powerapps.com.
Oh, sorry, make. You are correct. I've even written down as make, but make.powerapps.com, which is still accessible right now from web.powerapps.com. The preview, is that right?
Correct. And really, this is we've started up a sort of a new. Not a new version, but a new set of infrastructure that we're building a lot of our new designers in our portal. So visually, it's very, very similar, but it's more performant. There's a lot of sort of like infrastructure and fundamental reasons that we've moved to that. But ultimately, from a functionality perspective, it's very much the same. Some of the cool things that are in that new experience, though, by default, are a lot of things like the new entity experience, the new form designer, the new view designer. And they've been built on this new make.powerapps.com infrastructure that I was talking about. It does some really cool things that are really simple, but it is more performant for us to move around. We get some more engineering efficiencies in sharing content and libraries between it. But it also does cool things like it doesn't do a lot of pop-outs. It allows you to navigate quickly between objects. And what you'll see is that it's a bit of a vision for us in how we see all these different designers working together. But you'll see more and more of our new experiences light up in make.powerapps.com.
Yeah, excellent. So really what we would have gone to in settings in the past and drilled down to, maybe create a new view or customize a form, etc., we would expect now to get all that type of experience from make.powerapps.com.
Correct. And right now we still have the legacy experiences through settings and we have the new make.powerapps. As we basically build up that that critical mass of feature parity in the new experiences, we will make a shift at one point where even if you go to settings, customize in Dynamics 365, by default, you'll come into those newer Power Apps experiences rather than the legacy.
Yeah, fantastic.
But we want to do that at the right time. We don't want to rush it.
Yeah. So it's only in preview at the moment, right?
Correct. Both the view and form designers are both in preview, but they will be coming out to GA as well.
Yeah, so I haven't had a play with them as yet, but one of the things I really liked in the old experience is that if you needed to create a new field that wasn't already, if you like, in CDS, you could just hit the new button, specify what field type it was, etc., whether you want it audited, all those type of features. is that going to be in the maker experience that you could quickly on the fly create a new field?
Absolutely.
And embed? Excellent.
Yes, absolutely. And so it will be there. I don't know if it's in the version that's out right now. It might not be in the new form designer and view designer yet. But we're all about these being parity plus.
Nice.
We don't want them to do less than the old ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, like some cool things even on the form designer now, like you actually get a rendered UCI preview of your form. Brilliant. You can drag and drop on it and rearrange fields. So it's got some really cool things that we didn't support in the old one. But I think the preview might not have new field yet, but it is definitely something that's in the plans.
Excellent. So reusable canvas components, where are we up to in that? And can you kind of give some background into your thinking around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one's really cool. It's an experimental feature for us at the moment, but all going well, our plans this year is that it will move to full preview and it will move to GA, all in the space of this year. Basically, this gives us two main things. While Canvas had a lot of power, the expression language and the base controls, we saw people build absolutely amazing things. One of the things that was very unpleasant about it was that it was also very time consuming. So if you wanted to build like really simple examples, like a menu or a header that sat on the top of every screen of your app, you would build that and then copy and paste it across multiple screens. If you then had to make a change to that, you would make it in multiple places. Super unpleasant. But this is really where components comes in its simplest example and helps, is you can build something reusable to be able to be used across that app. And we've already seen people doing cool things with it, from basic examples like a header all the way through to doing, someone built like a mapping control with point-to-point distance and routing. But they built that as a canvas control, basically the canvas component. It sort of obscures away a lot of the complexity that the original maker had to go through to call services and different data connections. And it ultimately means that the maker building the app is dragging something on that has some input and output properties, and they're able to build a much richer app. So it's going to make, hopefully, the worlds of makers just a lot simpler when they're building, make them a lot more efficient in how they're building an app and maintaining an app. But it's also then, even for us, we have resources working on building out-of-the-box components as well. So things like a header and these things that we see people building really regularly, they'll be available in a gallery so that you can just sort of drag them on and use them, because we know everyone ends up building a menu. We know everyone builds up, a tab control or something along those lines.
Exactly.
So we want to start exposing a lot of those out of the box. The next step, which is sort of why this is an experimental and not GA yet, is one of the things that we'll be then releasing this year is they'll be fully solution aware. So
you could use them across apps.
Correct. You'll be able to use it. Right now, you can do it through an import-export process, but we want that to become way, way easier so that you can then basically just say, okay, I build a component. I want to sort of publish this to my environment and allow other people to use it. And then other people in your environment can just go ahead and go, yep, I'm building an app. Oh, I want my company's header on the top of this screen, and pull it in really, really quickly. So it's a huge one for us. It's in very early stages, but we're already seeing really good things be done with it. So we're going to be focusing a lot this year and just making sure it lands well. We finish off these pending features that we have around it, and we get it out for people to use in their production apps.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I see in London here, some of the bigger companies that are, they've already built, 50, 100 different apps. And there's this whole need to, if you like, maintain experience consistency, if you like, because they're internal to the organization, they're publicly facing, but you still need to create that kind of consistency so you're not retraining staff all over again on a new way that, the devs try to do their interface or navigation or the headers, as you're saying. So I think that's going to, create a lot less headaches for those larger organizations.
Yes, absolutely.
So, how are you bringing Canvas and model-driven apps together? I know that's one of your goals, your journeys to kind of bring that maker experience together. Where are you up to, and how are things going?
Going well. Really, our goal, our longer-term goal for us is we don't want people's first decision in the platform to be Canvas or Model. We want to remove that, and we just want people to build apps. Ultimately, though, the reason we have both and the reason we're not going to get rid of either one of them is that independently, they have a great set of features. Canvas is very, very powerful in giving you this fine-grained control, connecting to 240 plus data sources. Huge flexibility in the UX, great for designing mobile experiences, lots of power. Big, complex applications, multiple forms over data sets and connecting to CDS data, model-driven, far more powerful. So really the challenge for us, and our goal over the next 12 to 18 months is how do we bring these together in a way that we're closing the gaps and the pains and not actually compromising these features. This happened at the MVP summit, and it comes up whenever we talk about converging our app types. People are like, well, which one are you going to keep? And now, like I said, our goal isn't to get rid of either one of them. It's really to just remove the choice. So one of the things that we are investing this year is it's internally dubbed at the moment Canvas Pages. But really, it's just about us building a responsive way to build Canvas apps, which in its own right is hugely valuable. And something that you may have seen, we released an experimental feature for you to do like responsiveness through expressions. We released that in January. So we've sort of done the first, teaser in this area. Really the investment for us moving forward is how do we make this like a fully configurable experience, and make it far easier. Once we have those responsive pages and responsive components, that's going to be really a key part for us in then being able to bring that responsive Canvas page into the model-driven world and start seeing these blend. So it's by no means going to be quick. Even things we talked about earlier, theming, how does that work across the two? But ultimately, the positive side of it for me is we look as it, while it is a long journey, Canvas components, PCF, responsiveness are massive sort of steps on that journey, and they're all hugely valuable in their own right. So ultimately, sort of as people will see it come together, closer and closer over the next 12 to 18 months. But ultimately, our goal is that anything we're bringing in, we're not just doing for the fun of it. We'll release things independently like PCF and responsive pages so that people are getting value. And hopefully it's a relatively gradual experience for people that they can just sort of see, oh, okay, now in a model-driven app, I can use a Canvas page. Oh, now in a Canvas app, I can use a form. I can use a view. And they'll just over time get closer and closer and until those lines are so blurred that it's just a power app.
Yeah, fantastic. So another thing that's come up in recent times is it used to be that if you want to edit an app, and I'm just going to talk about dynamics here so it doesn't confuse people that kind of live in the Canvas world as much, and you'd just jump into settings and you would make your edits. So if you had one place to go. Now, before you came on the show, I'd listed 7 different URLs to remember. And you've given me another one, so we're up to 8. From and for the listeners, I'm going to place them in the show notes so you can see the various portals, if you like, that allow you to admin or do various carry out various steps or functionality configuration, etc. in the back end. Is there an intention to kind of go, hey, this is the one URL you need to know, and we're going to put a top-level nav that allow you to, this is the admin section, this is the maker section, this is the deploy your instance section, this is a Power BI flow, that type of thing? What's, I can understand how we've got to 7, as part of this journey, but is there an intention to then kind of wrap into here's the one place you need to go as somebody that works with the technology, and we'll make sure everything jumps off out of there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll definitely start seeing these come together. I'll first say that like our priority is more on how do we make the experiences really cohesive and easy to navigate between. You mean less about the number of URLs. If people are used to going to a particular URL, like admin.powerapps.com versus admin.powerplatform, you know what I mean, .com, that's totally fine. Like I'm less concerned about the URL, but what we are doing is we're making sure that I can go to like right now we're directing web.powerapps to make.powerapps, but you can go there, you can see all your apps whether they're Canvas or Model. You can open up the admin center from there. Admin.powerplatform.microsoft.com. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth a look. It's the new admin center to rule them all. And basically what you can do from there is there's a lot of cool functionality, not just in sort of managing environments and apps, but also analytics. And it'll take you back to the older legacy Dynamics experience if it needs to. Like if it doesn't have a particular feature, it will drop you back. But what you'll notice is similar to the way I was talking about make.powerapps.com and the old customization experience. As we get feature parity and we get that critical mass, you'll see more and more of these come together. Ultimately, though, at the top level, you'll still see, Power Apps Flow and Power BI. We want those to be super easy for you to navigate between. But ultimately, there's a lot of customers as well and a lot of users that use one of those products.
Yep.
So totally we're not going to go like rip everyone's URL out tomorrow.
Yeah. Makes sense. So is there anything you can share with what's coming up in the next release notes?
Oh, not apart from all the other things I've already let slip on this podcast. I don't really know if there's look, really it's going to be, I suspect we're actually finalizing our release notes at the moment. It will be a relatively short list. It's not going to be 1,000 features. As I said before, we're apart from our qualities and fundamentals focus, we're really focused on attacking simplicity and making it across the product, and that's from a end user stuff. So some improvements in UCI navigation and UCI grids, and then on the maker side, making sure we get PCF to GA, get Canvas components to GA, and get responsive pages out. So it's a short list, but we feel it's going to be a really impactful list.
Yeah, exciting. What about, I'm sure you've heard the numbers, I'm not sure if you're in the session that I was in, around Microsoft's goal of 10 million active users on the platform. Is that right? Is that what the goal is?
Yep, we want to enable the next 10 million developers.
Yeah, now I love that. So is that like a just a rally cry, or is that something that really has teeth behind it, and that's a really kind of, you are pulling to that outcome?
We are. I mean, like the only thing I will say about it being a little bit of a rally cry is, it is definitely one of the numbers that we look at. Our NPS, or our Net Promoter Score, which is how satisfied people are with the product, is also a very important number for us. So we would definitely not sacrifice one for the other. We would not sacrifice NPS, I suppose, is probably the better way to say it. But no, look, it really is. If you, while we obviously don't disclose these numbers externally, the Power Apps user growth is absolutely phenomenal. Over the few years that it's been in market, it continues to grow along with Canvas, ModelDriven, and really we feel really strongly about the things we're bringing in this year are going to start just in removing more of those cliffs and just enabling more people. So yeah, for us, it's a very real goal. Like, let's go get the next 10 million developers and get them on the Power Platform and make them happy.
And when you're saying developers, right, we're talking about citizen developers, not just, if you like, pro dev type devs, aren't we?
Correct. And I mean, like, that's really something that, we usually for these, but like things like we want to enable the next 10 million, we can't give the long list of definitions of people that use our platform, but we do. We see people that are coming from someone's customizing a SharePoint form and adding a field. The next person's building a simple, data entry app for a mobile device. all the way through to people that are building custom controls and completely bespoke line of business applications. So yeah, when we talk about a power platform developer, it is a huge spectrum of people.
Yeah. Just one before I get on to some quickfire questions to wrap up. Offline access. I see. I hear word on the street in the latest distro that's going out that's starting to light up again.
It is.
What can you share on that?
So there's just been a new preview that has launched on offline, and we're continuing to make improvements there, especially with our focus on mobile. Offline is hugely important for that, and that's across Canvas and Model. So we've recently re-released some sort of updated and improved experiences for ModelDriven offline, but it'll be an area that we continue to invest in. So, but you should definitely go check out the preview. It's well worth it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, some wrap-up questions that I have for you. What's hot on your reading, watching, or podcast list at the moment? Or are you just into Game of Thrones the whole time?
Yeah, I was. I did actually. Last night, again, whenever this airs, but last night was the Battle of Winterfell, which was amazing. And
is it going to be the battle now for the next 3 episodes? Though
it's. Well, you haven't watched it yet, obviously. So I won't.
Do you know? I've actually stopped partway through watching it tonight so I could do this podcast.
Oh,
so I haven't seen the last 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, then I won't ruin it for you. No. But it's really good. So we can talk about that next time we chat. But so yes, definitely Game of Thrones. I just finished reading actually one of my favorite books that I've read a couple of times called An Organized Mind. It's all about the way people think and categorize things and process information. And I have to reread it regularly because I forget all the improvements that it suggests. Damien, I will send it to you.
That's all right. That'll be great. An Organized Mind.
And usually it's in my office, but I've lent a copy, the one that's sitting in my office, to someone.
No, fair enough.
So it's not sitting on my bookcase.
Do you have any kind of hidden talents outside of work that you really share with anybody?
And I wanted to have a good answer to this one because I listened to Charles's podcast where he was just like, no, it's work and nothing else. So I was like, I need an answer to not make me sound like a total nerd. I think probably the only thing I did just call Charles a total nerd.
Yeah. He's just collecting his patent awards, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Get a patent button every time. Yeah.
The only thing that's probably sort of not even moderately hidden that I do enjoy that I don't get enough time for is actually baking.
Nice.
I really enjoy baking a nice pie. And the good thing about living in the US now is that everyone loves pie here. So, you know what I mean? Every time. Is
it like a good meat pie, though? Like
No. They're really... Actually, though, next time you're in Seattle, there's an Australian pie shop.
Okay.
In downtown Seattle now that is actually really good. But no, I'm talking about like sweet pies, like tarts and pumpkin pie and blueberry pie and key lime pie and things like that.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. What profession other than your own would you attempt if you could have like a parallel life?
Ooh, it would probably be in theater.
Okay.
Not necessarily on the stage. I have a big passion for musical theater in this world. And it was something even in high school I dabbled with. I just never really had the talent for it. But a large portion of my friends actually in Australia work in musical theater. And if it's something I had the talent for and I didn't fall into tech, I think that's where I would be.
Wow. Okay, so and here's one final one out of left field. What technology do you think is going to make the biggest impact in the next 5 years? If you distill that into a word or a sentence. Just one.
I still think it's going to be the continuation of mobile. I don't think it's hit its pace yet. I flash back to what I used to be able to do on a mobile device 5 years ago to what I can do now and how much of my world is on it. I don't know whether that's going to like distill itself into AR or, mixed reality or anything like that. But, I think so much now of how much I rely on my watch on my mobile phone. It tells me like what my dog is doing. It unlocks my front door for me. It starts my car. And that's been in the space of a couple of years. That's the space that I just continue to think will be busier, will be more mobile.
Yeah.
So why we're going to need devices to be able to do that.
But why don't we just bypass those interfaces and just go for a neural lace connection to the brain?
Like Johnny Mnemonic?
Plug ourselves into the network.
And but I don't think I have a shaved head, remember? So I don't have hair to like hide the little socket or however they'd connect.
Oh no, I think it'll be at the base of your neck, right behind your time to plug.
I don't have hair there either, Mark.
Neither do I. Shaved, I'm as bald as well.
Yeah.
But it's I think that is our future. We're going to become cyborgs.
I'm down for it.
I'll give it a go for sure. Hey, so who do you recommend as a guest for the show in future?
Ooh, there's 3 good people that I don't think you've had on, depending on the topics you want to chat about.
Cool.
James Olnick for all things admin.
So I hit him up when I was up at Summit. He was like, no, I couldn't come on the show. And then 3 days after Summit, he comes back to me, actually, I could come on the show. Yeah. So I'll get him on.
Get him on. Julie Strauss. Leads our ISV and pro developer things, like all the new tooling and lots of cool stuff coming out of her team.
Awesome.
Definitely great to connect with. The other one is he's already pretty visible in the community, Brian Dang.
Yep.
Absolutely genius on Canvas apps, huge passion for education, really very well connected to our community and customers, and just awesome, always inspiring to have a chat to.
Excellent. Yes, I follow him on Twitter, so I get my daily update from Brian. So that's a great list of people. I'm glad you came with a couple to choose from. Clay, it's been great to have you on the show. Before you go, if people want to kind of follow what you're up to online, basically they can see into your world slightly. Are you on any social media channels? I
am. I'm on Twitter at Clay B. Wesener, ClayBwesener. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Clay Wesener is my username there. Those are the easiest places to get me.
Hey, thanks for listening. Would love to hear from you. Please feel free to ask, connect, and share with me on any social platform by looking up NZ365 Guy. If you enjoyed this show, can you please take a minute to leave a review on your podcast app or any on the show notes page. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/99. Hey, see you next time.